I think it's a win, and yeah, I would have liked a little more money. I thought it was my first reaction was that's a lot of money, but it's a little light, and I think you're correct. I mean, one of the first thing I said to you text message today was like, why didn't they just round it off to $800 million? It sounds better, looks better.
One thing I didn't really like that came from,
but I never had any expectation that they were going to. I really didn't. That if they settled, it would be for $1 billion or more. I just never thought that was likely because kind of what's the point of settling if you're going to get into $1 billion or more? So. It's a win, and I'll explain it because I've got historical perspective on this. But what were you going to say, my friend?
One thing that was really interesting that came out from earlier today is Frank talked with the former mayor, Francis Slay, a little bit, and less of a perspective from something St. Louis-based, but he had a involvement in the Exxon Valdez case from way back in, early 2000s, and that shone a light when I looked it up to confirm the actual numbers. It was a $5 billion judgment. That case actually went to judgment. They didn't settle. It was a $5 billion judgment based on punitive damage. By the end of the actual payout that Exxon had to give after 12 years later was about $500 million.
And that's really great perspective.
Yeah,
there.
because
it is.
I mean, first of all, it's insane to me right now that St. Louis just got more money than the plaintiffs from the Exxon Valdez spill. That in itself is crazy. But away from that little piece of trivia, I think that's a good example of what can happen even if you do win a trial and how the appellate process, and again, that's even getting through a trial, how the appellate process can be harsh and unrelenting and time-consuming.
Right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right, and that's great perspective. I'm glad. I'm still going to call him Mayor Slay, even though he's not the mayor, just simply because it's an honorary title. He deserves it. He was a mayor here for 90 years. I'm only kidding. And as a proud city resident, I always liked Mayor Slay. So anyway, no, that's right. And again, I don't want to be too hard on people, but I'm not sure what people were expecting. I notice, and I know social media is not always the reliable barometer, but it's just people last night when this got out, and then when the money figure got out this morning, $790 million. I mean, people were like confused. They were disappointed. Probably there was either some legitimate outrage or fake outrage. There was some disgust, and I honestly just thought, I really don't know what people expected. I mean, I'm not knocking people for being disappointed because, you always want to get the maximum. You're in a fight with, especially some evil people. You don't want to just win. I mean, you want to win to the max. You want to take them down. But let's be honest here. Nobody takes the NFL down. Even if this had gone to trial and St. Louis had prevailed, and the damages would have been like this this figure where we all go, we gasp. To your point about the Exxon Valdez, the thing would have been tied up in appeals for years and years and years. There was also a chance that they would lose at the appellate level simply because the judges are different, and simply because it's away from the home field, and simply because recent appointees to some of the appellate courts tend to skew on the side of really wealthy people. So, you can't assume that St. Louis would have won this thing. I think the case was strong, but I think people were assuming, slam dunk. No, it's not. You never know what juries are going to think, even if it's a home field advantage for St. Louis. And there was also a chance, of course, that the NFL could have lost this thing badly, which is why they wanted to settle. I think the St. Louis attorneys had a figure in mind. I think that they knew there was even risk on their end taking this thing to trial, because you never can be 100% sure you're going to win, and not only win, but win big, or what the damages would have been. It could have come in a lot lower than everyone thought it would come in at if they had gone to trial and won. So the whole thing is like St. Louis won on a lot of levels. I mean, I don't think people understand how rare this is. I mean, this is incredibly rare that the NFL would just capitulate and just say no mas and let's just settle this thing and hand over nearly $800 million. I mean, that hasn't happened before. I mean, no one beats the NFL, and St. Louis beat the NFL, so everybody should be happy. The NFL doesn't crawl to a lawyer's office and say, let's settle. Oh, not for $100 million. How about $800 million? The NFL doesn't do that. I mean, the last time the NFL lost a case inside the league, and this is where I think my historical perspective comes in, because that makes me old, but it also makes me a guy who's covered this league, and multiple franchise moves since the early 80s. And when the NFL tried to stop Al Davis from moving the Raiders from Oakland to Los Angeles, he sued them on antitrust grounds. It did go to trial, and Al Davis won, but his settlement, the payment was, something like, I have it in front of me actually. The payment was like somewhere around $16 million, I think, and there were treble damages, so that pushed it up to over $50 million. And $49 million, and I don't know what ultimately he got after the lawyers fought some more. I don't know. But the point is, that's the last time someone, when we're talking about the league being sued from someone that was affiliated with the league, like St. Louis was affiliated with the league. It was a member of the league. It had a stake in the league. This league has not been smacked in the face from a lawsuit standpoint from NFL entities or NFL-related entities since 1983. And Al Davis didn't get a fraction of this free and clear $790 million that cannot be whittled down after appeals and after more lawyering. It's the final figure. People need to understand the NFL has never been walloped like this. So I'm not sure why. The cartel never really loses. This idea on the ground in St. Louis, frankly perpetuated by the media here, was this like, oh, we're going to bring Kroenke down to his knees. He's going to suffer. Goodell, his career is over. We will break them all. No, the NFL doesn't lose. The NFL has billions of dollars flowing in at any given moment in terms of television contracts, streaming, multimedia, advanced media, digital media. The NFL just money pours in all the time. Oh, they don't like to lose money. They don't like to get hit. They don't like to have to pay St. Louis nearly $800 million, but that's not really the point. This notion that somehow we're going to defeat them, we will break them. No, it was never going to happen. It was like you get whatever the hell you can get from these people, and you squeeze hard, and you make them pay. Before you make them pay, you make them sweat. You uncover all their dirt. You uncover all their nasty secrets. You get Kroenke and his fellow owners trying to knife each other. You get Roger Goodell running for the hills. You create all this anxiety and all this worry, and they don't want the Super Bowl impacted by this, and they can't have owners eventually trying to assassinate each other. To make the NFL go through this dance and to sweat profusely and to worry profusely and engage in open battle, the owners with each other. Do you understand how impossible, in effect, that kind of scenario is? It doesn't happen. St. Louis made it happen. St. Louis scored a big victory here. They exposed the NFL. They revealed that the whole process was corrupt and a sham. It was something you would expect from a cartel. It was something you would expect, from the Escobar cartel down in Colombia back in the day. And it was exposed for what it is. And frankly, I don't think not that many people outside of St. Louis care. I don't think they paid attention. I don't think they cared. I know a lot of national media didn't care. There were some exceptions. And my point being, this was something at the beginning, no one knew how it would work out. I mean, I was skeptical. I had every right to be skeptical because I'm so used to the NFL winning at everything, which makes this victory even sweeter because the NFL does win at everything when it goes to trial. In fact, there was a trial in St. Louis after the Rams moved here back in 1997 because the people that had negotiated the dome lease with the Rams charged that the NFL, in effect, interfered, which they did because they stopped the Rams from moving once, and they basically jacked up Georgia Frontier and the Rams. Like, no, you're going to have to pay more. They squeezed them. I mean, they basically just said, you're not going to get the votes. You got to pay up. You got to pay a lot more. And that put it in doubt for a little while. And so St. Louis took the NFL to court in 1997 here in St. Louis. For everyone assumes, well, Bernie, the trial would have been here. The trial was here in 1997, and the judge all but laughed. I mean, unlike the judge now, Judge Jean Hamilton ruled in favor of the NFL. She just didn't see much merit, if any, to the St. Louis case. So you just cannot assume you're going to win, even if it's in your home field. But my point being, and I'm rambling a little bit now, this is a very rare achievement. The NFL doesn't take a beating. It doesn't go down. It doesn't feel any kind of pain or having their arrogance pierced. Will this break them? No. Is this going to hurt anybody in that league, particularly financially? Sorry to tell you, but not really. And the situation is, however, they took a big, heavy punch, and they were wobbled by this. They were shaken by this. They were left dizzy and disoriented by this. And they had enough. They didn't want any more dirty secrets coming out. They didn't want any more private conversations and emails coming out. They had been embarrassed over and over again, and more was on the way, and they just said enough is enough is enough. Because the last thing they wanted, in addition to all this, at the next owners' meeting is an all-out brawl with 70 and 80-year-olds passing out and having to be rushed to the hospital. So I wish people would, understand what a great victory this is. You never were going to get the victory that you wanted, and I'm not sure how each of us as individuals, define that. Was it an expansion team? No chance that was ever going to happen. None. Don't know why local media in particular perpetuated this nonsense to get the fans' hopes up. And it wasn't that the local media was starting the rumors, except they were just regurgitating the rumors, and people who were hustling to get clicks for their site or whatever. People here took the bait and just ran with it. And then that got the fans thinking, oh, yeah, maybe. I had a guy in the media get a hold of me a few weeks ago, and he said, hey, I think it's about 50% we get an expansion team. What do you think? And I texted back, I said, 0% chance that we're going to get an expansion team. Because I've got NFL contacts going back for years. I know what people were thinking, including at the ownership level. And they just said, never, it's never going to happen. So that was my only thing. That's why I stayed out of this. And if people remember that listen to the show, if they remember that I just took a position on this, and of course I want St. Louis to win. Of course I want St. Louis to give this league and Kroenke a beatdown legally. Of course I want to see the best for this, for St. Louis for this situation, to just get some form of reparation for what happened and what was did to the city. A corrupt, misleading, betrayal, a not only a flawed process, but a criminal process, basically, a criminal enterprise that whisked this team out of here and to Los Angeles under false pretenses. I wanted to see St. Louis win it, but I didn't want to engage in this town square hyperventilating media-wise, where you're getting the fans' hope up, where you're leading them to believe that this is going to be the victory of all victories, and that NFL owners will lose consciousness, and Stan Kroenke will go into a coma, and Roger Goodell will never be seen again, and the league will fold. And I'm being obnoxious, and I'm exaggerating on purpose, so forgive me. But I didn't want to be a party into raising all of these expectations to unrealistic levels, especially when it came to this stupid idea of an expansion team. But I didn't want to do that to fans who were getting their hopes up again after being crushed by this league so many times. I just didn't want to play a role in that, and I feel vindicated today that I largely sat this out and stayed, except for a couple of things where, trashing Stan Kroenke, because that's fun to do. I stayed on the sidelines for the most of the part, and it was actually a smart decision. I didn't want to be part of a media group that really raised the fans up, created false and unrealistic expectations. That it succeeded, I think, unfortunately, in people being really disappointed by the settlement and the amount of the settlement and the kind of, is that all there is type of reaction. I didn't want to have a role in that, in making that dynamic happen to where today people ought to be celebrating, or at least be really happy, because you beat the cartel. St. Louis beat the cartel. When does that happen? The answer is never, other than Al Davis. and that was for a fraction of this in terms of penalty. You beat the cartel. We did it. This is extremely rare. You should be happy. This should make your Thanksgiving even better. And there's a lot more to talk about, but I go back. I'll leave you with this. When that verdict was announced in 1983, Joseph Alioto, who's the former mayor of San Francisco, by the way, he was Al Davis's attorney. He said, quote, "This vindicates Al Davis's serious charge that the league dealt with him in bad faith. Hit the monopolies the only way they understand. Hit them in the pocketbook." Well, that's 1983. Here we are 40 years later, right? Just about. Don't those words apply to this situation on the ground in St. Louis? Don't those words ring true when it comes to the legal battle between St. Louis and the NFL? The late Joseph Alioto, he could be standing downtown St. Louis saying this right now, and it would be absolutely applicable. It would be absolutely true. We are vindicated. This was not a frivolous lawsuit. It was legitimate. It was worthy. It was warranted. And we did, in effect, make serious charges that the league dealt with us in bad faith. It was actually blatant dishonesty. But in the words of Joseph Alioto, and I'm going to say it one more time, his quote in 1983, after that verdict came in favor of Al Davis, quote, "Hit the monopolies the only way they understand. Hit them in the pocketbook." This is what St. Louis did. Why don't we accept the victory instead of pouting or whatever it is going on out there? You understand what I'm saying, Rock?
I do. I think that we have some questions on the text line kind of around that topic. Just basically 314. We beat the cartel. Now what?
Nothing. Look, I'm going to tell you what I'm not getting into today. I will get into it as time goes on. I'm not going to immediately, jump into the pit, jump into the fray, and start going nuts over how this money will be spent, and sort of like laying down lines, and I'm going to go after this politician or that There's going to be time for that. I'm not going to get into that stuff now. But you know what made me the happiest about this the decision, and I ended my column at Scoops with Danny Mac about this. You know what the biggest win it was for me? I'm speaking for myself personally. We don't have to deal with these shady miscreants anymore. These vermin are now going to scurry away, and they're going to be out of our lives. I'm talking about the NFL, because NFL in St. Louis has been a terrible experience, except for a few precious years. It has been a horrible experience. Very thankless, and one that has left us crushed repeatedly. I don't know why anybody would want to be a partner with this league again. I mean, these people are gangsters. They can't be trusted. They are vermin, and you can get mad at me for name calling, but that's how I feel. I'm just glad this part is over and they're out of our lives, and it's time for the rest of you, in my opinion. Get Stan Kroenke out of your headspace. Don't continue to allow him to live in your head. He's been winning that battle all along. Evict him. Get him out. Get on with your life, and don't let Stan Kroenke exist in your psyche anymore. It's enough of that, too, okay? All right, did I raise enough hell there?
I think so.
But I don't know what's going to come next, and I really don't want to think about it now.
And now we can talk about some actual football.
No, we're not allowed to do that here in St. Louis. I don't think, anyway. But actually, we are. I'm only kidding.